reported chemical weapons attacks. The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon today said Bashar al-Assad's government in Syria is blocking the investigation, even after that very government asked the UN to investigate an alleged attack by the rebels. The rebels claim the regime forces did it. Syria is widely believed to have a large stockpile of chemical weapons, but it doesn't report to any organization monitoring those weapons, so it's hard really to know exactly what's going on there. Mike Barrett is with us now. He is a former intelligence officer for the Office of the Secretary of State and is CEO of Diligent Innovations, which is a consulting firm in Washington, D.C. Mike, good to see you.
How you doing, Shep?
So what are we to make of this?
Well, apparently the latest wire reports out actually indicate that the regime's issue is not with the inspectors looking at the specific attacks they had been talking about, but that the UN team said they want to go in and look at all reports of chemical attacks. And so that would open the scope dramatically, and potentially you'd have UN teams running all over Syria as opposed to just in one isolated location.
What he's been doing, in essence, is defending his own hold on power, as you told our bookers today. There's more to it than that, and as you mentioned, he's an awful person, but that's the heart of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right, this is an existential threat to Assad and his entire regime. I mean, this is a civil war from their perspective, and so he's going to do whatever it takes to hold on to power. And, at one point, the fear is that if he gets accused of using chemical weapons, then that's a red line, and the United States will actually get directly involved and will use overwhelming force, and that'll be the end of his regime. So for the sort of 24-hour period where it looked like those were the reports, he immediately came out and said, yeah, absolutely, let's get a UN team in here. My guys didn't do this. But what he doesn't want is teams of UN inspectors running around the rest of the country, because then again he opens himself up to other areas where the rebels could claim that chemical weapons had been used, and you're just going to really be cracking open the media, the international attention inside Syria and all the tragedies that are going on there.
You surprised at all that in this era of social media and YouTube and all the rest that the rebels haven't gotten together a little more video power to make their case?
It is interesting. I mean, we see some pieces coming out of it. What I find interesting, I mean, you mentioned the rebels and the social media part. What I find interesting is things like the Arab League, representing a bunch of Arab nations, all of whom have a military, calling for the U.S. to come in and use force. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a regional problem, and it's not something that the U.S. necessarily ought to be getting involved in. And I'm not entirely clear to me why the Arab League and some of their neighbors are doing that. Now, if you're talking about Al Jazeera and some of these other local TV stations, there's actually quite a bit of social media out there. Of course, none of it can be proven in terms of the veracity of it, but there's some pretty graphic stuff that's being shared, and the Arab Street, as we call it, seems to be getting pretty agitated, but none of the nations are actually doing anything other than, again, as I say, asking the Americans to come in and be the world's policemen once again.
Yeah, nobody policing for themselves. Mike Barrett on Capitol Hill. Nice to see you, pal. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Jeff.